Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 14th episode of the StackWave podcast. Today, we are going to be talking about what service meshes are, when they come in handy, and when it might be better to avoid them altogether. So, for this discussion today, we have with us Tarun, who's a developer at Buoyant.io, and Buoyant.io are also the main sponsor of Linkerd, one of the main players in the service mesh area. Hey, welcome, Tarun. Can you start by introducing yourself?
Thanks, Manoj, for organizing this podcast. So my name is Tarun. I work at Buoyant. Buoyant is one of the main sponsors of Linkerd. Linkerd is an open source service mesh, part of the cloud native computing project, as that of Kubernetes, like Prometheus, and all the other major projects that we know. Uh, so currently, I work especially on Linkerd as my full-time job with other maintainers from other companies too. Other than that, I was supposed to be graduated this year, but then with the whole COVID situation, I don't think it'll happen anywhere sooner now. Uh, so a bit of my experience, I did my Google Summer of Code with Linkerd and then another internship with Linkerd, the open source project, and then I applied for jobs in the CNCF space, and Buoyant felt like a great place as they were the main sponsors of Linkerd, and I enjoyed working on the project with them. So it felt like a great place, and I joined them. So that's how this happened.
Hey, so I've obviously heard about Linkerd, and through Linkerd I've also heard about Buoyant.io. So just had a quick question to ask about Buoyant.io. So what is the main
Sure.
area that Buoyant.io works on? Is it primarily around Linkerd? Is that the main area, or is there a different offering or different tools and products that Buoyant.io works on as well? Because I've only known Buoyant.io through Linkerd. I've not heard about the company in any other space. So can you give a bit of detail before we move on to today's topic?
Yep. It's no, I think it's similar for many other folks. They first obviously find out Linkerd and then the
Yeah.
supporting car and then supporting companies. So Buoyant.io especially offers support and other things for Linkerd, the both two versions of Linkerd that we had, Linkerd 1 and Linkerd 2. And other than that, we have also been working on a product offering called Dive, which builds an abstraction on top of Linkerd and other service meshes. Uh, that is mainly focused for platform owners to have a coordination between the service owners, the deployments, and all that coordination. It's like a similar thing. Like what is GitHub to Git, Dive is for service meshes and services in general. So we have a similar analogy there. Yeah.
All right, got it. Makes sense. Yeah. Okay. So let's go into today's topic, which is on service meshes. Right. So let's start from the basics. I have my own view of what the service mesh is, and it's good to talk with someone who's working in one of the main products in the space. So, what is a service mesh, right? So, what does it mean to you?
Mhm. That's a good question, obviously. So what I think about is that so now with the whole microservice adventure, we are having a lot of whole polyglot services deployed in different languages and different frameworks, etc. So it's hard to have a configuration that is across all these microservices that can be applied in a standard way for all these microservices, especially with Kubernetes and things like that. Now we have a standard platform for application deployments, but there is still a small abstraction needed for services in general, the protocol that a service is doing, and things like that. So a service mesh, essentially what it does is that it essentially provides a standard way to apply configuration across all your microservices, and that configuration is only on the traffic level. That could be observability, where you want to see the metrics of your traffic, incoming, outgoing, the TCP, HTTP, and all that stack. It could be reliability configuration, where you want to configure retries, timeouts, traffic shifting, shaping, shadowing, and all that traffic-based reliability features. And other than that, it also provides security primitives. Like it automatically upgrades all your communication to be MTLS automatically without you having to do any application changes, like having to rotate certificates or even give certificates, because a service mesh proxy is everywhere, at each of your application pod in Kubernetes. We have the pod concept, where a pod is like a container, is like an application instance, a single application instance. So you put the proxy as a sidecar for all the application instances, and the proxy takes care of all this configuration for that specific pod. And this configuration can be applied for all the proxies in a singular fashion without having to worry what the application instance is written in. It could be in Python, it could be in Golang, it could be in any other language, it could be in any other framework. The proxy takes care of all the networking features, security features, like I said, MTLS, automatic upgrades, access control, authentication, and all that stuff. It's like a load balancer, but in a decentralized way. That I could tell, yeah.
All right. So service meshes also do a lot of different tasks from what I'm gathering, right? So, but is there like a minimal set that will define a service mesh, that these are the features that a service, whatever we call as a service mesh, should have?
No.
Or is there like, is that still open, like different implementations or different tools will have different features? And what are the core features that you would expect from a service?
A core features that I would definitely expect is the security primitives. Like if you can't get that security primitives, then there is no point of a service mesh, because handling security is hard. You have to rotate certificates to your applications, etc. It's pretty hard thing. Like especially in a microservice world, it has to be coordinated. It is very hard. So by having a proxies everywhere, security features can be configured in an easier fashion, in a simpler fashion.
Okay. So while explaining about service meshes, right, you were mentioning Kubernetes a lot. Obviously, we speak about service meshes in a more with Kubernetes in mind, but probably sort of might end up being a dumb question. But are we also talking about service meshes outside the context of Kubernetes these days, or is it when someone says service meshes, it's definitely within context of Kubernetes?
That's a good question. So actually, I think the whole service mesh evolvement came because the underlying problem of platforms. So what essentially Kubernetes did was it provided a simpler, it provides a simpler, scalable, reliable abstraction for on top of VMs, right? Like having pods, etc. So now that we solved the problem, now we have the problem of application instances. How do you handle traffic shaping and things like that? So I think the advent of service mesh definitely had a lot to do with the whole Kubernetes abstraction that came up. But it's not a new thing. For example, in companies like Google, Twitter, etc., there was already a pattern called FAT. There is a pattern called FAT clients, where you essentially put a library into your application that does all that. So, for example, for Twitter, there is this library called Finagle, which you import in your Java or any other JVM based applications, and all the traffic stuff, all the MTLS, rotations, shaping, it will all be done by those libraries. And even in Google, there are libraries like that, and Netflix has Hysterix, and there are a lot of libraries that do the same. So with Kubernetes, what essentially we got is, with the whole container pod abstraction, we had a way better way without having to do language specific or client libraries.
So so what you're saying is also like sort of like libraries that do the common work, and also the sidecar pattern, I think, which was also made more popular by Netflix, I would think. Right. So is it fair to say that service mesh is sort of like making like the sidecar pattern and what we do with it as a more first class item within our cluster, and then utilizing them? Would that be a fair statement?
I think it is definitely, I mean, a good statement that to make. So without the whole sidecar concept, I mean, you can't do a service mesh, because there have been attempts to make it, to find a middle ground. So for example, we have the whole load balancer where you have the proxy as a singular instance that all your applications will talk to. And then the sidecar is more of a decentralized way. But folks have always tried out things like the proxy as a daemon set, where you have the proxy per node and per node proxy. But essentially, then the security primitives are all gone, right? You can't do MTLS as fine-grained as you could. So the sidecar model definitely helps a lot. It is definitely a core part of the whole service mesh thing.
Sure. Thanks. So so I've been using Kubernetes since 1.0. And mainly for stateless applications and so on. but I've never used a service mesh. So am I doing it wrong? So leading
Ah,
to the question, so who should be using service meshes, and maybe the more important question in a lot of these cases, right, even with microservices and so on, who shouldn't be using them?
in my opinion, I think if you are using microservices, I would highly suggest you try out a service mesh at least. You don't have to take it right away as the whole internet marketing does. Like if you're not doing a service mesh, you should not do micro. I would definitely not tell that, but you should definitely try out and see for yourself. For example, in big companies like Netflix, Twitter, etc., they obviously have already a way of setting up applications, and it does not make a lot of sense to bring something like Linkerd or Istio for that matter into your whole platform unless you don't have a primitive that does that. For example, if you already have a client library and your applications are ubiquitous, in a lot of companies, most companies like the enterprise ones, they stick to a single stack, right? For example, JVM based or some stack. If you're doing that, you essentially don't need the whole abstraction of a sidecar proxy, etc. So in that case, I would definitely ask you to see for yourself. But if you're using Kubernetes, if you're not doing pretty high scale, if you're a normal hundreds in the numbers of hundreds microservices, and and an and if you see the benefits of a networking primitive. So for example, if you are using microservices, then traffic shifting and things like that. So for example, in monoliths, uh, we had feature flags that allow you to do A/B testing and stuff, right? But now with microservices, you can't really do that. Traffic shifting can help you in that way to have canary deployments and things like that. So if you have a requirement for those problems, and if you solve the whole Kubernetes model, and it's a pretty good standard that you could rely on, then I would definitely suggest you to try out service meshes.
Yeah, I think you made a very interesting point there. So to reiterate it and sort of to get some clarity around it, right? So
Sure.
what you're also saying is that if all your services are, say, based out of one stack of, say, Scala or Java or whatever, right, JVM, you could potentially write a library and use something like Finagle that Twitter had, or you could develop your own solution and use that across all your services. But one of the main advantages of microservices, in at least in one part of it, is that you can go for polyglot programming, use the right programming language for the right
Yep. Yep.
tool. And if
Yep.
that is the case, then you'll then have to then invest the time to write libraries or your own implementation for all of these different languages. In that case, probably try out if a solution like Linkerd is going to help you or not. Would that be a good
Yep.
summary of what you were trying to say in that part?
Yep, yep, totally. So as you rightly mentioned, now people are definitely going to do polyglot microservice, right? We are not going to stick to a single language. We would at least want to try out the new ones that are coming out, like Golang, etc., for performance services that you need
Yeah,
and things like that. So it definitely makes sense. I think there is a lot of value in service mesh in that case. Yeah.
great. So let's talk about some of the existing tooling around in the space. So obviously there is Linkerd, there is the bigger one, which is Istio. So how do these compare, and what are the other smaller tools or unknown ones in there? I was even surprised to know that Console is now also being treated as a service mesh. I didn't know that. I think it was not
Yeah.
originally intended to be that, right? So, and there is
Yeah.
Monk also, which I can see,
Yep.
and you are allowed to be a bit partial as well, or biased.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I'm definitely biased, but sure, I'll try to say my opinion here.
Yeah.
So Linkerd, I think the founding team, came from the whole Finagle approach. So our founding team, Oliver, and all the founding team of Linkerd, they were working on Finagle at their previous jobs. They were using it, and when they came out, they wanted to do a service mesh offering in in the cloud native space. Obviously, the proxy is the most important part of a service mesh, right? Whatever, if the proxy is performant, you are performant. If it has more features, you can offer more features on top. So they had started looking for proxies that are available on. And during that frame, Envoy is a pretty famous, popular, widely used cloud native proxy, right? So we obviously tried out Envoy there, but what happened was that so 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 before Envoy, we actually did a Finagle as a proxy, even though it's a library. We
Yeah.
compiled that into an application and then put that in a in a proxy. So during Finagle, what we understood was so this was Linkerd one. What the team understood was that if you're going to put the proxy everywhere, it has to be performant, it has to be reliable, it has to be safe. The performant part is a very important thing, because if you're putting the proxy everywhere and it is taking a lot of memory, it's taking a lot of latency, etc. So it is important that it is performant. So we tried out a lot of other proxies, including Envoy. Then we understood that it could, because the service mesh has a unique approach, because you're putting that proxy everywhere, it makes sense to rewrite a proxy that is focused on performance, essentially. So we took up the hard way of writing our own proxy. So the Linkerd proxy is written in Rust, essentially. So it's so the safety guarantees are pretty better than any other proxy out there. And also, other than the proxy is the proxy obviously offers better latencies. It is performant. It consumes less memory. It is safe, and all those benefits. We also take it that drastically different approach on the control plane too. So what essentially the other service meshes offer is that especially Istio, especially the marketing states that so you have the Kubernetes abstractions there, the service, pod, deployment, etc. And on top, Istio provides its own abstractions, virtual service, virtual gateway. There are a lot of abstractions that it provides. But the Linkerd approach states that the Kubernetes primitives are reliable enough and feature rich enough for us to not rebuild a lot of abstractions again. So what Linkerd does is that you don't have to do anything if you install Linkerd. It uses just client Go of Kubernetes to get the K8 services, etc. And you don't have to define any abstractions of any sort. Like in Linkerd, there are hardly 2 CRDs right now. That also, if you want to do traffic shifting and other reliability features. So if you want to go to the MTLS and all the default features that you would use with the service mesh, there is zero config essentially. You install Linkerd and it just works right away. You get observabilities, the success count, the latencies, P9 and everything without having to do any configuration. So that is a uniquely approach that we take with Linkerd.
Awesome, Tarun. I think that gives a good summary of where the different toolings will be and where I think especially Linkerd is. And yeah, I've been following this space a bit. I've never used any of them, like I said before, but I know Linkerd has been making some news mainly because of some of the decisions around performance and all that, and also the complexity.
You should definitely, because you have been using Kubernetes, I would definitely suggest you to try out Linkerd, because it takes like hardly 10 minutes to set up and it just gets working everywhere. So I think it's a really the onboarding with Linkerd is something that we really stress on to have the best onboarding experience, and also a manageable experience later on for upgrades and all those kinds.
Sure, I'll do that. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So I think we have touched up a lot upon the advantages, the pros, right? But what are some of the reasons or the main cons? I think we talked about it a bit. Probably even the performance aspect could be a reason in certain cases, or some other cases could be some very high request users, or like high load users might come up with their own solutions and so on, right? So what would you say are the main reasons, say top 2-3 reasons to say don't use it? Or is there nothing like that? Like everyone should try it out and see if it works for them. It's going to depend a lot from one company to other, or one use case to another. What would you say?
With respect to Istio?
With respect to just service meshes in general, not about any particular. I'm assuming we can probably assume for this question that all of them are equal in some sorts. But would you say that don't use service meshes for certain reasons?
So that's a pretty good question, and we got that a lot too. So one of the things that we really get a lot is the whole distributed tracing as a service mesh. I don't know if it was because of the Google marketing, etc. But what essentially people have developed a myth that if you install a service mesh, it provides a service graph. Automatically. It is true. Like Linkerd does that, Istio does that. You can see all the service graphs, like which service is talking to which, the directions, the latencies in that direction, etc., and all that. But it doesn't help anywhere on the distributed tracing side. So what a proxy would do is that it can add its own spans, traces, etc. But it would not help you with your application traces. You have to configure. You have to still configure your applications to pass the trace ID everywhere and things like that. So the obvious distributed tracing changes you have to do at your application, and then the proxy adds its own spans. If you don't do that, then there is no benefit of a service mesh. But it's a marketing thing that got people into the wrong direction.
Great, good to know. So coming to the last question that I wanted to ask you. So service meshes are obviously something that are fast evolving. Lot more folks are talking about them, understanding what they are, starting to use them, and so on. So in the next few years, right, where do you see this whole space evolving towards? Do we see like everyone starting to use them? Is it going to be as ubiquitous as Kubernetes? At least from an opinion point of view, everyone has an opinion about Kubernetes these days, whether they use it or not. Would we see service meshes also in the same space, in the same level as Kubernetes, like a couple of years or a few years down the line? Where do you see the space evolving towards?
I definitely know that some other marketing companies, I mean, they do that obviously because Istio, I mean, Google markets Istio as the next thing with Kubernetes. If you have Kubernetes, you have to have Istio, but I don't think it's true. I think there are enough service meshes for you to try out and see if there is a real use case for you. What I essentially go think is that after Kubernetes, even though you don't install a service mesh, but you will do some sorts of service mesh feature matching, I mean, by your own. So for example, so by using a service mesh, you get application metrics out of the box. If you're using HTTP or gRPC or any other TCP based protocols, you get obviously you directly get the success count, the failure count, and all that observability features right out of the box. But people can do that manually too. They'll do that. I'm sure a lot of applications on Kubernetes, they already have a way to get all those types of metrics out. They already have a way to do retries, timeouts, etc. So people are already unknowingly building features of a service mesh on their own. Parts of features that they would need, that they would want, and things like that. So I'm sure there are a lot of other companies who will not have the bandwidth of building those features. They have to rely on open source projects. They have more business logic stuff to take care. So essentially, using a service mesh makes a lot more sense than building your own client library stuff that would do all those features. So I think that's a pretty good use case there. Yeah.
Sure. Thanks a lot, Karun. I think we have touched upon the high-level introduction to service mesh, and I think it'll be useful for anyone who's not yet used to service meshes yet and thinking about what it actually means. It was definitely useful for me. I've been following this space from pretty far away for some time now. Maybe like you said, I'll try out Linkerd and see how it goes. And now I also have contact within Linkerd, so I can approach you if I have any troubles as well. So
you should definitely join our Slack and then ping us.
Yeah, sure, I'll do that. Yeah, sure. Thanks a lot for taking the time again, Tarun.
Thanks, Manoj, for organizing the podcast. It's really nice to see folks in India also doing all this stuff. I think we are definitely lagging a lot in that space, like doing more blogging, more podcasts, and a lot of stuff. I think it's a great thing that you took up this. Yeah.
Sure. Thanks a lot, Tarun. That's good feedback. Thanks. Yeah, I've been getting some similar feedback. I hope to continue doing this. Previously started blogging but stopped, but now I want to focus and create some content. So I've been making sure I do at least one a week. So going okay so far. Yeah. Thanks for the feedback.
Awesome. I think you're doing a great job.
Thank you. Yeah. See you. Thanks again for taking the time.
Bye, Manoj.